Johto introduced some of the most thoughtful and carefully designed Pokémon in the entire series, building on Kanto's foundation while adding deeper mechanics, new types, and stronger world building. Feraligatr stands as one of Johto's most physically imposing Pokémon, representing raw strength and primal aggression in a region known for quieter, more traditional themes. Introduced in Pokémon Gold and Silver as the final evolution of Totodile, Feraligatr was designed to feel like a true escalation of power. While Johto emphasized history, mythology, and balance, Feraligatr embodied something more direct: survival through force. The evolutionary line begins with Totodile, a small and energetic crocodilian Pokémon known for biting anything it can reach. Totodile's design is playful and compact, giving the water-type starter an early charm. As it evolves into Croconaw, the design becomes more angular and heavier. Croconaw gains distinct red spikes along its back and a more serious expression, signaling that the line is shifting away from playfulness toward power. When Croconaw evolves into Feraligatr at level 30, the transformation is dramatic. Feraligatr stands upright, towering over its earlier forms with thick limbs, powerful jaws, and a heavier torso. Its body proportions emphasize muscle and durability. The red spikes running down its back are more pronounced, and its jaw structure becomes broader and more dangerous. One of the most interesting development facts about Feraligatr involves its name. The Pokémon's original intended English name was feraligatr, combining feral and alligator. However, due to character limits in the original Game Boy games, which restricted Pokémon names to 10 characters, the name was shortened to feraligatr, dropping the O. This limitation permanently shaped the Pokémon's identity and remains one of the clearest examples of hardware influencing franchise lore. Visually, Feraligatr draws heavy inspiration from crocodiles and alligators, but it is stylized to appear more upright and battle-ready. The upright posture separates it from realistic reptiles and places it closer to kaiju or monster design traditions. Early Pokémon development often leaned into this monster aesthetic, and Feraligatr carries that legacy strongly. From a lore perspective, Pokédex entries describe Feraligatr as violently territorial. It is said to crush prey with massive jaws and drag opponents underwater with overwhelming force. These entries paint it as a predator that dominates aquatic environments through physical superiority rather than speed or finesse. Its pure water typing in Generation 2 reflects the simplicity of early starter design. Unlike later generations where final starter evolutions often gain dual typings, Feraligatr remains focused entirely on water. This choice emphasizes raw elemental strength rather than complexity. In early competitive play, Feraligatr was somewhat limited by the mechanics of Generation 2. Water-type moves used the special attack stat, while Feraligatr's strongest stat was attack. This mismatch meant that its physical power did not fully translate into water-type offense. However, players who experimented with moves like Earthquake and Return found ways to utilize its physical capabilities effectively. Combined with Dragon Dance, a move that boosts attack and speed, Feraligatr became a legitimate, sweeping threat in competitive formats. Another hidden detail about Feraligatr lies in its role within Johto's thematic balance. While Meganium represented calm growth and Typhlosion embodied explosive energy, Feraligatr symbolized instinct and dominance. Together, the trio represented different approaches to strength. In the anime, Ash's Totodile remained unevolved, which meant viewers rarely saw Feraligatr in a central heroic role. However, When Feraligatr appeared under the ownership of other trainers, it was consistently portrayed as powerful and intimidating. Its physical presence translated well into animated battles. From a development standpoint, Feraligatr reflects a transitional era in Pokémon design. Over time, Feraligatr has maintained steady popularity among fans who appreciate straightforward power. It may not have the mystical lore of legendary Pokémon or the complex dual typing of later starters, but its appeal lies in its clarity. Thematically, Feraligatr represents transformation through instinct. Totodile's biting behavior matures into Feraligatr's crushing dominance. It suggests that natural tendencies, when refined, can become overwhelming strengths. In later generations, Feraligatr gained abilities like sheer force, which increases move power at the cost of secondary effects. This ability fits perfectly with its identity, reinforcing the idea of raw force over subtlety. Ultimately, Feraligatr stands as a reminder of Johto's grounded strength. It does not rely on mysticism or elaborate lore. It represents the primal side of Pokémon evolution, survival, adaptation, and physical dominance. And standing firm with jaws clenched and red spines raised along its back, Feraligatr remains one of Johto's clearest examples of growth through instinct. A water-type starter shaped not by elegance or mystery, but by the steady, undeniable force of natural power. Lanturn is one of Johto's most quietly fascinating Pokémon, blending real-world biology, deep-sea mystery, and clever mechanical design into a single concept. Introduced in Generation 2 as the evolution of Chinchou, Lanturn stands out not because of overwhelming physical presence, but because of the environment it represents. While many water-type Pokémon evoke rivers, oceans, or storms, Lanturn specifically embodies the deep sea, a place defined by darkness, pressure, and bioluminescence. Its design and lore reflect this inspiration with surprising depth. Chinchou, Lanturn's pre-evolution, is already distinct in Johto's roster due to its unusual water and electric typing. This dual typing was relatively rare in early generations and immediately signaled something unique. When Chinchou evolves into Lanturn at level 27, its design expands vertically and horizontally. Its body becomes larger and more stable, and its two glowing antennae become more pronounced. The transformation feels natural, like a deep-sea creature reaching maturity. Visually, Lanturn is based on the anglerfish, a real-world species known for its glowing lure used to attract prey in dark ocean depths. This biological reference is one of the clearest examples of Pokémon drawing directly from science while adding stylized elements. The glowing orbs at the end of Lanturn's antennae mimic the bioluminescent lure of anglerfish, giving it immediate ecological identity. Unlike realistic anglerfish, however, Lanturn's design is softened. Its rounded features and gentle facial expression remove the more intimidating aspects of its inspiration. This balance between realism and accessibility reflects Johto's broader design philosophy, which leaned into natural themes without becoming too aggressive or monstrous. From a lore perspective, Pokédex entries describe Lanturn as illuminating the ocean floor with its antennae. Some entries claim its light can be seen from the surface of the sea, even when it swims at extreme depths. While exaggerated, this detail reinforces the idea that Lanturn is a beacon in darkness. It suggests reliability and guidance rather than predation alone. The water and electric typing plays a crucial mechanical role. In battle, Lanturn's electric typing allows it to resist electric-type moves that would normally threaten water Pokémon. This interaction makes it strategically unique, capable of countering threats that other water types cannot. Its ability Volt Absorb further enhances this identity by restoring health when struck by electric attacks. From a development standpoint, Lantern represents Generation 2's commitment to expanding type combinations and strategic depth. Johto introduced new mechanics such as held items, breeding, and the dark and steel types. Lantern's unusual typing fit within this broader effort to diversify battle strategies. In competitive play, Lantern has rarely been a dominant force, but it has consistently maintained niche roles due to its unique defensive typing and access to moves like Thunderbolt, Surf, and Ice Beam. Its stat distribution favors bulk over speed, reinforcing its identity as a steady presence rather than a fast attacker. Another hidden detail about Lantern lies in its potential symbolic meaning. The deep sea is often associated with the unknown, yet Lantern brings light into that space. This subtle symbolism aligns with Johto's themes of exploration and rediscovery. While Kanto focused on straightforward progression, Johto emphasized hidden lore and layered environments. In the anime, Lantern appears in underwater settings where its glowing antennae serve as both aesthetic and functional elements. Its portrayal emphasizes curiosity and cooperation rather than aggression. It is often shown assisting or guiding rather than attacking. The name Lantern cleverly combines lantern and turn, referencing both its glowing feature and its aquatic movement. This naming convention reflects early Pokémon design priorities, where clear wordplay reinforced a Pokémon's core concept. One fascinating scientific detail about real anglerfish is that some species use symbiotic bacteria to produce light. While Pokémon does not explicitly reference this biological mechanism, the idea of internal energy generating light parallels electric-type traits. Lantern's glow is described as powered by electricity within its body, blending real biology with elemental fantasy. Generation 2 also placed Lantern in the Whirl Islands and other aquatic routes, reinforcing environmental consistency. Players encountering it in darker waters experienced firsthand how it fit into Johto's maritime atmosphere. Thematically, Lantern represents adaptation to pressure. Deep-sea creatures survive in extreme conditions, and Lantern's sturdy build suggests resilience. This quiet durability contrasts with flashier, electric types like Raikou, offering a more grounded interpretation of electrical power. In later generations, Lantern continued to receive minor updates through new moves and abilities, but its core identity remained unchanged. It was never redesigned dramatically, indicating that its original concept was already cohesive and stable. Fans often appreciate Lantern for its subtlety. It is not marketed heavily, nor does it dominate competitive scenes, but it carries a strong thematic presence. It represents one of the purest examples of ecological design within Pokémon. Another interesting hidden mechanic detail is how Lantern's typing creates unusual resistance interactions. It resists steel and fire while neutralizing electric threats, making it unexpectedly versatile in defensive roles. Over time, Lantern has become a favorite among players who value balanced and thoughtful team building. Its consistent reliability reflects Johto's slower, more reflective pacing compared to Kanto's intensity. Ultimately, Lantern symbolizes guidance in darkness, whether in lore as a deep-sea beacon or in battle as a strategic pivot. It fulfills the same role: steady illumination. And far below the ocean's surface, where pressure builds and sunlight fades away, Lantern continues to glow softly, a quiet reminder that even in the deepest waters of Johto, There is always a light moving calmly through the dark. Pichu represents one of the most important structural additions introduced in Generation 2. While Johto is often remembered for expanding the world geographically and adding new types, it also introduced a concept that reshaped how players thought about evolutionary lines: baby Pokemon. Pichu, as the pre-evolution of Pikachu, was not simply a smaller version of an existing species. It was part of a broader system built around breeding, friendship, and deeper mechanical world building. Before Generation 2, Pokemon evolved forward but did not evolve backward. Pikachu began as Pikachu, Clefairy began as Clefairy. The idea that some Pokemon had earlier life stages was implied but never mechanically represented. Pichu changed that. Its existence required players to engage with Johto's new breeding system, which allowed compatible Pokemon left at the daycare to produce eggs. Pichu was one of the first Pokemon that could only be obtained through breeding rather than direct capture. To receive a Pichu, players had to breed Pikachu or Raichu. This design decision reinforced the idea that Pokemon were living creatures with life cycles, not just battle units. It deepened the ecological realism of the world. Visually, Pichu retains the core identity of Pikachu, but emphasizes youth. Its body is smaller and rounder, its ears proportionally larger, and its expression more innocent. The black ear tips are shortened compared to Pikachu's longer, sharper look. This subtle softening of design reflects early Pokemon art philosophy, where baby forms were made cuter and more vulnerable to communicate growth potential. From a gameplay perspective, Pichu's defining mechanic is tied to friendship. Unlike many Pokemon that evolve through leveling or stones, Pichu evolves into Pikachu only when its friendship value with its trainer is high enough. This mechanic, introduced in Generation 2, marked a shift in how evolution could be achieved. It was no longer purely about experience points. It was about bond and care. The friendship system itself was invisible to players numerically, but influenced through actions. Walking with a Pokemon, leveling it up, and avoiding fainting all increased friendship. This mechanic encouraged a different style of play. Players were rewarded for patience and consistent companionship. In the lore, Pokédex entries describe Pichu as unable to fully control its electrical power. When excited or surprised, it may release sparks unintentionally. This detail aligns perfectly with its baby status. It is not weaker by choice, but because it is still learning. This narrative adds emotional nuance to Pichu's identity. It is not merely a smaller Pikachu. It is a stage of development where power exists but control does not. That theme fits Johto's broader focus on growth and balance. From a development standpoint, Pichu was also a marketing bridge. Pikachu had become the face of the franchise through the anime, introducing a baby form, expanded merchandising potential, while reinforcing the new breeding system. However, unlike purely commercial additions, Pichu was carefully integrated into game mechanics. Pichu also holds a special place in crossover history. It became a playable character in Super Smash Bros. Melee, where it functioned as a high-risk fighter that damaged itself when using electric attacks. This mechanic mirrored its in-game lore about unstable power. Although often considered a novelty character, its inclusion cemented Pichu's cultural presence beyond the main series. Another hidden detail about Pichu lies in its stat distribution. It has very low defensive and offensive stats compared to Pikachu. This reinforces the idea that baby Pokemon are transitional forms rather than battle-ready powerhouses. In competitive play, Pichu rarely appears due to these limitations, but its purpose was never dominance. It was developmental storytelling. The name Pichu is a natural diminutive of Pikachu, maintaining phonetic continuity while signaling youth. This naming consistency helps players immediately understand the evolutionary relationship. In the anime, Pichu appeared in several episodes, often emphasizing playful innocence. Its portrayal reinforced the idea that Pokemon have childhood stages similar to animals or humans. Generation 2 introduced several other baby Pokemon, including Cleffa, Igglybuff, and Togepi's already established status. Pichu was arguably the most significant because of its direct connection to the franchise mascot. Thematically, Pichu represents beginnings. It symbolizes raw potential that has not yet stabilized. The sparks it produces unintentionally are visual metaphors for energy without discipline. In later generations, Pichu gained new relevance through alternate forms like spiky-eared Pichu in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This special event variant could not evolve, reinforcing the uniqueness of certain narrative forms. From an ecological standpoint, Pichu's introduction suggested that Pikachu populations had breeding cycles and developmental stages previously unseen. This addition enriched world-building significantly. Over time, Pichu has maintained popularity due to its connection to Pikachu and its role in expanding Pokemon's life cycle mechanics. Even players who do not use it in battle recognize its importance. Ultimately, Pichu is about growth through care. Its evolution depends not on strength, but on trust. This subtle shift in evolutionary logic marked one of Johto's most important design innovations. And standing small, with electricity crackling softly around its cheeks, Pichu remains a symbol of early beginnings, a reminder that even the most iconic figures in the Pokemon world once started as something smaller, learning slowly how to control the power they would one day fully command. Togepi is one of the most symbolically important Pokemon introduced in Johto, not because of battle strength or complex mechanics, but because of what it represented for the franchise at a critical moment. Before Generation 2 even released, Togepi had already appeared in the anime, hatching from a mysterious egg discovered by Ash. That moment marked the first time Pokemon explicitly introduced the concept of eggs to a global audience, quietly preparing players for one of Johto's most significant mechanical additions, breeding. When Pokemon Gold and Silver launched, Togepi became one of the earliest examples of a Pokemon whose identity was centered around happiness, innocence, and emotional bonds rather than raw combat. It did not evolve through leveling alone. Like Pichu, Togepi required high friendship to evolve, reinforcing the theme that Johto wanted to explore, that connection between trainer and Pokemon mattered in tangible ways. Visually, Togepi is one of the simplest yet most effective designs in Generation 2. Its body resembles a small, cream-colored creature partially enclosed in a cracked eggshell patterned with red and blue triangles. The triangular shapes are important because they are said to represent good fortune and happiness stored within the shell. This detail aligns with Pokédex entries that describe Togepi as sharing positive energy with those who treat it kindly. The cracked egg design suggests something perpetually in between. Togepi has hatched, but it still carries its shell. That imagery symbolizes early life and vulnerability. It is not fully independent yet, reinforcing the idea that Togepi is in a transitional stage of growth. From a development perspective, Togepi was crucial in marketing the idea of new discoveries in Johto. The anime's reveal of an egg sparked speculation among fans long before the games explained how eggs worked. By the time players encountered breeding mechanics in Generation 2, the concept already felt natural. In gameplay, Togepi's stats are modest and not suited for early offensive dominance. Instead, it learns supportive moves and status effects, encouraging strategic rather than aggressive play. Its move pool includes techniques that reflect its personality, such as charm and metronome. Metronome, in particular, is significant because it mirrors the unpredictable innocence of Togepi. The move calls a random attack, reinforcing themes of chance and spontaneity. This mechanic ties into Togepi's broader identity as a Pokémon associated with luck. The friendship-based evolution into Togetic further emphasizes emotional growth. When happiness reaches a high enough threshold, Togepi evolves into Togetic, a more graceful and airborne form. This transformation represents maturity through care rather than force. In the anime, Misty's Togepi became one of the most iconic companions of the Johto era. It rarely battled, instead serving as a symbol of gentleness and optimism. Its presence shifted the tone of many episodes, adding warmth to otherwise competitive or adventurous narratives. Togepi's design inspiration likely draws from folklore surrounding lucky eggs and protective spirits. Eggs in many cultures symbolize new beginnings, rebirth, and fortune. Incorporating these motifs into a Pokémon reinforced Johto's thematic focus on tradition and mythology. The fairy typing, added in Generation 6, completed Togepi's conceptual alignment. Originally a normal type, Togepi's reclassification acknowledged what had long been apparent, that its identity was rooted in magical charm and positivity. Another hidden detail about Togepi involves its shell patterns. The red and blue triangles resemble ancient symbols found in Johto's architectural designs. While never explicitly confirmed, this visual similarity suggests cultural integration within the region. In competitive play, Togepi itself rarely appears due to its limited stats. However, its evolutionary line eventually becomes viable through Togekiss in later generations, demonstrating how early baby Pokémon sometimes serve as foundations for powerful final forms. From a mechanical standpoint, Togepi's existence validated the breeding system. Players could now hatch eggs and discover baby forms, adding depth to Pokémon's life cycle. This innovation expanded gameplay significantly. Thematically, Togepi represents hope and emotional connection. Its Pokédex entries frequently mention that it draws happiness from positive feelings around it and becomes weak in hostile environments. This idea introduces emotional ecosystems into Pokémon lore. Over time, Togepi has remained a recognizable and beloved Pokémon due to its anime prominence and symbolic meaning. It is often associated with warmth rather than power. Ultimately, Togepi stands as a reminder that Johto was not only about new regions and new types, but about expanding emotional mechanics within Pokémon. And sitting gently within its cracked shell, eyes wide with quiet trust, Togepi remains one of Johto's purest symbols of new beginnings, a Pokémon born not from battle, but from the simple, steady power of care. Umbreon stands as one of the most carefully constructed Pokémon introduced in Generation 2, representing not only the expansion of Eevee's evolutionary line, but also a deeper philosophical shift in how Pokémon evolution could function. When Gold and Silver released, Umbreon immediately distinguished itself through visual restraint, mechanical purpose, and thematic clarity. It was not flashy in motion, nor overwhelming in raw damage output, yet it quickly became one of the most respected and enduring members of the Eeveelutions. Its identity is built around patience, loyalty, and calculated defense, making it one of Johto's most iconic additions. The introduction of Umbreon coincided with one of Generation 2's most important technical innovations, the internal clock system. For the first time in the series, time of day affected gameplay. Certain Pokemon appeared only at night, others during the day, and some evolution methods required specific time conditions. Umbreon evolved from Eevee only when leveled up at night, while having high friendship. This dual requirement of bond and darkness made Umbreon's evolution feel deliberate and earned rather than immediate. Unlike the original Kanto evolutions, which evolved through elemental stones, Umbreon required emotional investment. Players had to travel with Eevee, avoid letting it faint, and maintain consistent companionship. Only when trust was strong enough and night had fallen would the evolution occur. This reinforced Johto's broader theme that connection between trainer and Pokemon carried tangible weight in the world. Visually, Umbreon is defined by simplicity and contrast. Its body is sleek and black, with glowing yellow rings on its ears, tail, and forehead. The design is minimalist but intentional. The black body absorbs light, while the luminous rings draw attention to specific points. This high contrast palette ensures Umbreon remains recognizable even in early pixel art. The glowing rings are described in Pokédex entries as lighting up when Umbreon feels threatened or prepares to attack. This anatomical detail grounds its power in physical expression. Rather than emitting constant light, Umbreon's markings activate situationally, suggesting emotional awareness and control. The rings are not ornamental, they are signals. Umbreon's typing as a Dark-type Pokemon is equally significant. Generation 2 introduced the Dark-type primarily to counter the dominance of Psychic types from Generation 1. Umbreon was among the first representatives of this new category. Unlike later Dark types that leaned into aggressive or chaotic themes, Umbreon embodied composure and strategic resilience. In battle, Umbreon is built around durability. Its high special defense and solid overall bulk allow it to withstand sustained assaults. Rather than overwhelming opponents quickly, Umbreon excels at wearing them down gradually through moves like Toxic, Protect, and Wish. This defensive toolkit reinforces its thematic alignment with patience and calculated timing. The name Umbreon derives from umbra, meaning shadow, combined with the consistent eon suffix shared across the evolutions. This naming structure maintains evolutionary continuity while clearly signaling its connection to darkness and night. From a development perspective, Umbreon's streamlined design made it highly readable on the Game Boy's limited screen resolution. The glowing rings provided visual personality without complex detailing. Even in early sprite form, Umbreon felt refined and complete. In the anime, Umbreon appears as loyal and steady. It is often portrayed as a dependable partner rather than an impulsive fighter. This consistent characterization across media strengthened its identity. Mechanically, Umbreon gained even greater prominence in later generations through its hidden ability, inner focus, and eventually Synchronize. Synchronize reflects status conditions back at the opponent, reinforcing Umbreon's reactive nature. It does not initiate harm, it responds proportionally. Another subtle design detail lies in Umbreon's posture. It stands low to the ground, but poised, suggesting readiness without aggression. Its body language communicates restraint rather than dominance. Culturally, Umbreon's aesthetic draws loosely from black cats, often associated with superstition and nocturnal mystique. However, unlike negative folklore associations, Umbreon is not portrayed as malicious. It represents protective shadow rather than danger. In competitive history, Umbreon has consistently maintained a niche as a defensive wall. While never the most explosive Pokemon, its reliability ensured long-term relevance. Even as power levels rose across generations, Umbreon's core identity remained stable. Thematically, Umbreon represents loyalty formed in quiet moments. It evolves not through elemental force, but through shared experience during nighttime hours. Its power is a product of trust and environmental harmony. Over time, Umbreon has become one of the most popular evolutions among fans. Its understated design and strong thematic clarity resonate widely. It proves that strength does not require spectacle. Ultimately, Umbreon stands as a testament to Johto's design philosophy. It embodies balance between mechanic and narrative, between form and function. And beneath the steady glow of moonlight, with golden rings shining softly against dark fur, Umbreon remains one of Johto's most enduring symbols, a Pokemon defined not by noise or speed, but by patience, loyalty, and the quiet strength found in the stillness of night. Espeon represents one of the most important turning points in the evolution of the Eevee line, and in many ways, one of the clearest demonstrations of Generation 2's design philosophy. When Pokemon Gold and Silver released, they did more than simply add new creatures to capture. They redefined how growth could work within the world. Espeon was not obtained through a stone. It was not found in the wild. It was earned through time, bond, and environmental awareness. That shift alone made it significant, but Espeon's importance goes far beyond its evolution method. Before Generation 2, Eevee's identity revolved around elemental transformation. Fire, water, and electric represented straightforward, branching paths. The introduction of Espeon and Umbreon added a new layer. Evolution could now reflect time of day and emotional connection. Eevee evolving into Espeon required high friendship and leveling up during daytime hours. This mechanic tied directly into Johto's internal clock system, one of the most ambitious features introduced in the second generation. The day-night cycle did more than alter lighting. It changed encounters, behavior, and pacing. Some Pokemon appeared only at night, others were active during the day. By tying Espeon's evolution to daylight, Game Freak integrated it into the world's rhythm. Espeon did not simply represent psychic power, it represented clarity under sunlight. Visually, Espeon is defined by sleek refinement. Its body is smooth and streamlined, colored in a soft lavender tone that differentiates it from more aggressive psychic types. The most prominent feature is the red gem embedded in its forehead. This gem is described in Pokédex entries as the focal point of its psychic energy. When Espeon senses danger or prepares to use its abilities, the gem glows faintly. This gem functions as a visual anchor for its identity. Psychic power in Pokemon often manifests invisibly. Espeon's gem gives that power a physical representation. It grounds an abstract concept into something concrete. The forked tail is another distinctive design feature. Unlike the rounded tails of Vaporeon or the lightning bolt shape of Jolteon, Espeon's tail splits cleanly into two symmetrical ends. This symmetry reinforces its balance and composure. Nothing about Espeon's design feels chaotic. From a development standpoint, Espeon needed to be immediately readable on the limited resolution of Game Boy hardware. Its silhouette had to be simple enough to distinguish in pixel form. The gem and large ears accomplished this efficiently. Espeon's psychic typing placed it within an interesting transitional era. In Generation 1, psychic types were overwhelmingly dominant. With the introduction of Dark and Steel types in Generation 2, Psychic Pokemon were finally given reliable counters. Espeon entered this new environment as a fast and offensively oriented Psychic type, built for precision rather than bulk. Its stat distribution emphasizes high special attack and speed. Espeon is not built to endure prolonged punishment. It is designed to strike quickly and decisively. This mechanical identity aligns with the idea of foresight. Rather than reacting defensively like Umbreon, Espeon anticipates and eliminates threats before they escalate. Pokédex entries frequently mention Espeon's ability to predict opponent movements by sensing minute shifts in air currents. This detail reinforces its perception theme. Espeon does not rely purely on brute psychic force. It relies on awareness. In competitive history, Espeon has experienced several peaks of relevance. In earlier generations, its speed and special attack made it a dangerous sweeper. However, its fragility required careful play. The introduction of abilities added further depth. Espeon's Synchronize ability reflects status conditions back to opponents, discouraging careless attempts to cripple it. Later, the hidden ability Magic Bounce dramatically reshaped Espeon's competitive identity. Magic Bounce reflects status moves and entry hazards back at the user. This ability turned Espeon into a powerful utility tool capable of blocking stealth rock, spikes, and other disruptive moves. This ability perfectly matches its theme of psychic reflection and foresight. Thematically, Espeon represents daylight discipline. Where Umbreon embodies patience in darkness, Espeon symbolizes clarity in light. Its evolution during the day reinforces this duality. In the anime, Espeon has been portrayed as elegant and intelligent. It often appears alongside skilled trainers, reinforcing its association with strategy and trust. Culturally, Espeon draws inspiration from mystical interpretations of cats. In many traditions, cats are associated with intuition and spiritual awareness. Espeon's feline design integrates this symbolism without leaning into superstition. The name Espeon likely derives from ESP, meaning extrasensory perception. This clear linguistic connection strengthens its identity as a psychic specialist. Espeon's relationship to the broader evolutions is also important. It was one of the first expansions beyond elemental stones. It proved that Eevee's potential was not limited to basic elements. Over time, Espeon has remained one of the most popular evolutions due to its sleek design and offensive capabilities. It strikes a balance between elegance and danger. Ultimately, Espeon stands as a representation of mental clarity achieved through bond and environment. It does not evolve because of a stone's immediate trigger. It evolves because trust was maintained consistently under daylight conditions. And beneath the steady warmth of the sun, with its crimson gem glowing softly against pale lavender fur, Espeon remains one of Johto's most refined creations, a Pokemon defined not by chaos or spectacle, but by perception, discipline, and the quiet certainty that comes from seeing what others cannot. Sneasel is one of the most stylistically distinctive Pokemon introduced in Generation 2, representing the sharper, more agile side of Johto's Dark-type expansion. While Umbreon showcased the defensive and patient aspects of the new type, Sneasel embodied something different: speed, cunning, and precision. Its design marked an important shift in how dark types could be interpreted, moving beyond bulky or shadowy figures into sleek, fast predators built for efficiency. Visually, Sneasel stands out immediately. Its slender body, elongated claws, feather-like ear crest, and sharp eyes give it a striking silhouette. Unlike many Pokemon that rely on bulk or exaggerated proportions, Sneasel's appeal lies in its streamlined shape. Every element of its design communicates motion. The curved claws and narrow frame suggest swiftness and control rather than brute strength. Sneasel's typing as dark and ice is one of the more unusual combinations in Johto. The dark type was newly introduced in Generation 2 to rebalance psychic dominance from Generation 1. Ice, on the other hand, has traditionally been associated with fragility but powerful offensive coverage. The pairing of dark and ice created a Pokemon that hit hard and fast but struggled defensively, reinforcing its glass cannon identity. From a development perspective, Sneasel likely drew inspiration from weasels and small predatory mammals, animals known for agility and sharp hunting instincts. Its name blends sneak and weasel, reinforcing stealth and cunning. The Japanese name Nula similarly evokes feline and agile imagery. Pokédex entries describe Sneasel as highly intelligent and often working in groups to steal eggs from nests. This detail adds personality beyond battle mechanics. It is portrayed not as mindlessly aggressive, but as strategic and opportunistic. This aligns closely with the dark type's thematic focus on trickery and calculation rather than pure evil. In the original Gold and Silver games, Sneasel was somewhat underwhelming in battle due to mechanics of the time. Dark-type moves were classified as special attacks, while Sneasel's strongest stat was attack. This mismatch meant that it could not fully capitalize on its typing until later generations. The physical special split introduced in Generation 4 dramatically changed Sneasel's viability. Dark-type moves became physical, allowing Sneasel and its new evolution, Weavile, to finally utilize their attack stats effectively. This mechanical shift retroactively elevated Sneasel's design, proving that some Pokemon were ahead of their time conceptually. Sneasel's evolution into Weavile, introduced in Generation 4, further emphasized speed and offensive pressure. However, even before that evolution existed, Sneasel's identity as a swift, dark type was clearly defined. In the anime, Sneasel appears as sly and competitive. Its battles emphasize agility and claw-based strikes. The portrayal reinforces its predatory elegance rather than brute intimidation. Another hidden detail about Sneasel lies in its habitat. It is often found in icy or mountainous regions, environments that require adaptability and quick reflexes. This environmental consistency strengthens world building in Johto. The feather-like crest on Sneasel's head and ear shapes add avian qualities to its mammalian base. This hybridization of traits reflects early Pokemon design tendencies to blend inspirations for uniqueness. Culturally, Sneasel's introduction signaled that dark types could be sleek and cool rather than monstrous. It appealed to players who favored speed and style over raw power. Over time, Sneasel has maintained popularity due to its distinctive silhouette and competitive relevance after Generation 4. Its design aged well because it focused on clarity and motion. Ultimately, Sneasel represents evolution in design philosophy. It marked a shift toward faster, sharper, dark-type interpretations within Johto's roster, and gliding silently across frozen terrain, claws poised and eyes sharp in the moonlight, Sneasel remains one of Johto's most refined predators, a Pokemon defined not by size or spectacle, but by precision, speed, and the quiet confidence of striking first. Mantine is one of Johto's most graceful and environmentally grounded Pokemon, representing the region's emphasis on natural habitats and interconnected ecosystems. Introduced in Generation 2, Mantine did not arrive with dramatic lore or overwhelming battle power. Instead, it quietly expanded the world of Pokemon by reinforcing aquatic depth, cross-species interaction, and subtle environmental storytelling. While some Johto Pokemon embodied mythology or mechanical innovation, Mantine represented ecological realism. Visually, Mantine is based on a manta ray with wide, wing-like fins that allow it to glide smoothly through water. Its body is predominantly blue on top and lighter underneath, reflecting real-world countershading found in marine animals. This coloration provides camouflage from both above and below, reinforcing its adaptation to open ocean environments. The gentle curve of its fins and rounded facial features give Mantine a calm, almost serene presence. Unlike many water-type Pokemon that emphasize aggression or elemental spectacle, Mantine communicates fluid motion and peaceful strength. Its silhouette is broad but not bulky, giving the impression of gliding rather than charging. Even in early sprite art, the developers managed to convey this sense of motion through the upward sweep of its fins. From a lore perspective, Pokédex entries describe Mantine as capable of leaping gracefully above ocean waves. It is often seen swimming, with Remoraid attached to its underside. This detail is one of the most fascinating ecological connections introduced in Johto. Remoraid, based loosely on Remoras that attach themselves to larger marine animals, is described as feeding on scraps left behind by Mantine. This relationship between Mantine and Remoraid marked one of the earliest explicit examples of symbiosis in Pokemon. Rather than existing as isolated species, they interacted in mutually beneficial ways. While the original Gold and Silver games did not mechanically require Remoraid for Mantine to exist, later generations added a breeding requirement involving Remoraid to produce Mantike, further strengthening this ecological link. The introduction of Mantike in Generation 4 as Mantine's pre-evolution reinforced this theme of interdependence. Mantike evolves into Mantine only when leveled up with Remoraid in the party, making the relationship between species mechanically meaningful. This design decision highlighted Game Freak's increasing focus on environmental systems within Pokemon biology. Mantine's typing, as water and flying, reflects both its aquatic habitat and its gliding behavior. The flying typing may initially seem unusual for a sea creature, but it aligns with real-world manta rays that leap above water and appear to fly briefly through the air. This typing also differentiates Mantine from purely aquatic Pokemon. Mechanically, Mantine has consistently been characterized by high special defense and moderate bulk. It excels at absorbing special attacks, particularly from water and fire types. Its weaknesses, including electric and rock, maintain balance while reinforcing thematic consistency. Electric types, often associated with storms or lightning, counter its oceanic presence naturally. In competitive play, Mantine has often served as a defensive support Pokemon. Access to moves like Roost, Defog, and Scald allow it to remove hazards and sustain itself during longer battles. While rarely dominating the highest tiers, Mantine remains a reliable choice in formats where durability and support matter. From a development standpoint, Mantine reflects Generation 2's commitment to expanding aquatic diversity. Kanto's water types were often straightforward fish or serpentine creatures. Johto introduced species that felt more specialized and ecologically integrated. Mantine's broad wings and calm demeanor contrast sharply with aggressive water types like Gyarados. The name Mantine blends manta and possibly marine, directly referencing its inspiration. The clarity of this naming reinforces the simplicity of its design concept. In the anime, mantine is often portrayed in oceanic settings, sometimes used for transport or appearing in calm coastal scenes. Its gentle nature and large size make it a natural fit for serene water-based storytelling. Another hidden detail about mantine is its breath control. Some Pokédex entries describe it swimming at great depths, surfacing occasionally to glide above waves. This duality between depth and air reinforces its water-flying typing. Thematically, mantine represents connection. It is rarely depicted as solitary. Its relationship with Remoraid and later Mantike emphasizes coexistence and balance within ecosystems. Over time, mantine has maintained steady popularity due to its soothing design and functional role in competitive formats. It is not flashy, but it is dependable. Ultimately, mantine symbolizes the quiet harmony of Johto's seas. It does not rely on myth or aggression to define itself. Its strength lies in balance and cooperation, and gliding silently above blue waters, wings extended against the horizon, mantine remains one of Johto's most peaceful creations, a reminder that power in the Pokemon world does not always roar or blaze, but sometimes moves softly with the rhythm of the tide. Heracross is one of the most important Pokemon introduced in Generation 2, not only because of its strength, but because of what it represented for the bug type as a whole. Prior to Johto, bug-type Pokemon were often associated with early game weakness or transitional forms that evolved quickly and then fell behind in competitive viability. Heracross challenged that perception immediately. It was strong, late-game viable, and carried a dual typing that gave it a distinct identity separate from earlier insect Pokemon. Visually, Heracross is based on the Japanese rhinoceros beetle, a species commonly associated with childhood insect collecting in Japan. This cultural inspiration connects directly to Pokemon's original concept, which was built around the childhood hobby of collecting and trading creatures. By designing Heracross around a beetle species that Japanese children frequently raised and admired, the developers rooted it in nostalgic familiarity while elevating it into something larger than life. Heracross's body design emphasizes strength through compactness. Its deep blue exoskeleton, powerful arms, and large horn communicate durability and focus. The horn itself is its defining feature. Unlike many Pokemon with ornamental appendages, Heracross's horn is clearly a functional weapon. Pokédex entries describe it using the horn to throw opponents great distances or to flip much larger foes with surprising leverage. This is consistent with real rhinoceros beetles, which use their horns in territorial disputes. The bug and fighting typing combination was revolutionary at the time. Fighting types in Generation 1 were relatively rare and mostly humanoid. Bug types were often fragile and fast. Combining these two types created a Pokemon that was both physically imposing and thematically cohesive. Heracross did not feel like a novelty. It felt like a statement that bug types could be serious contenders. Mechanically, Heracross was given high attack and respectable speed in Generation 2. It also gained access to powerful moves such as Megahorn, a high-damage bug-type attack that became closely associated with it. Megahorn allowed Heracross to hit psychic types hard, which was particularly relevant in a generation still adjusting to the introduction of dark types as counters. In early competitive scenes, Heracross gained recognition for its offensive pressure. Its ability to threaten both normal and psychic types gave it valuable niche coverage. While Generation 2's slower pace meant battles often lasted longer, Heracross could break through defensive cores with careful positioning. Another important development factor was the introduction of abilities in Generation 3. Heracross received the ability Guts, which boosts its attack when afflicted by a status condition. This ability synergized incredibly well with moves like Facade and Close Combat in later generations, turning Heracross into a dangerous late-game sweeper if stat used intentionally. Guts redefined Heracross competitively. Players began intentionally allowing it to be burned or poisoned to activate the attack boost, transforming a drawback into an advantage. This interaction reinforced Heracross's identity as a Pokémon that thrives under pressure. In the anime, Heracross became closely associated with Ash in the Johto series. Ash's Heracross was portrayed as powerful, yet somewhat distracted by its fondness for nectar. This characterization balanced its serious battle capabilities with light humor, making it memorable. Despite occasional comedic moments, Heracross proved reliable in high-stakes battles. Thematically, Heracross represents discipline and force. Unlike aggressive or chaotic fighters, it uses controlled movements and precise horn strikes. Its posture is upright and stable, reinforcing confidence rather than recklessness. From a development standpoint, Heracross signaled that Generation 2 would expand type viability and push underrepresented categories into prominence. It was not a starter or a legendary, yet it commanded respect through raw performance. The name Heracross combines Hercules, referencing the mythological hero known for strength, and cross, possibly referring to its horn shape or its fighting type influence. The Hercules beetle connection is particularly strong, as that species is one of the largest beetles in the world. Later generations introduced Mega Heracross in Pokémon X and Y. Mega Heracross dramatically increased its attack stat and redesigned its horn into a multi-pronged structure resembling a cluster of spears. This design amplified its offensive identity. Mega Heracross became one of the most powerful physical attackers in its era, capable of breaking through even heavily defensive teams. Mega Evolution allowed Heracross to fully realize its potential as a wall breaker. Its boosted stats and access to Skill Link as an ability enabled multi-hit moves like Pin Missile and Rock Blast to strike with devastating consistency. Hidden design details also reveal how Heracross maintains symmetry and balance. Its arms and legs are proportioned carefully to prevent the horn from appearing too heavy. This ensures that even in sprite form, it looks stable and capable. Over time, Heracross has maintained strong fan support due to its consistent performance and straightforward design. It is not overly complex or overloaded with lore. Its appeal lies in clarity and execution. Culturally, Heracross resonates strongly in Japan due to beetle collecting traditions. Children often raise rhinoceros beetles as pets, and these insects are celebrated for their strength relative to size. By translating that real-world admiration into Pokémon form, the designers created a species that felt authentic. Ultimately, Heracross stands as one of Johto's greatest success stories. It elevated the bug type from early game filler to legitimate powerhouse. It demonstrated that thoughtful typing combinations could redefine expectations, and standing firm with horn angled forward and stance unwavering, Heracross remains one of Johto's clearest examples of focused strength, a Pokémon that proved power does not require wings, flames, or myth, but can exist in disciplined precision and unshakable resolve. Tyranitar stands as one of the most defining Pokémon introduced in Generation 2, representing not just raw strength, but a major evolution in how the series approached late-game powerhouses. As Johto's pseudo-legendary Pokémon, Tyranitar followed the design tradition established by Dragonite in Generation 1, but it did so with a dramatically different tone. Where Dragonite was gentle and rounded despite its strength, Tyranitar was sharp, armored, and intimidating. Its presence signaled that Johto was ready to explore a more imposing form of power. Tyranitar evolves from Pupitar at level 55, completing a 3-stage evolutionary line that begins with Larvitar. This high evolution level reinforced the idea that pseudo-legendaries were earned through patience and training. Players who committed to raising Larvitar were rewarded with one of the most powerful non-legendary Pokémon in the game. That delayed payoff made Tyranitar feel special and rare. Visually, Tyranitar is heavily inspired by kaiju cinema, particularly Godzilla. Its upright stance, thick tail, jagged dorsal plates, and green armored hide create an unmistakable silhouette of destructive force. Unlike many reptilian Pokémon, Tyranitar's design emphasizes density and weight. Its limbs are thick, its posture firm, and its facial expression stern. It looks like a creature built to endure impact. The rock and dark typing combination was groundbreaking in Generation 2. Rock types traditionally represented durability and physical defense. Dark types were newly introduced to counter psychic dominance. Combining the two created a Pokémon that resisted many forms of attack while threatening others with high offensive output. Tyranitar felt strategically complex from the moment it appeared. In battle, Tyranitar was defined by its balanced stat distribution. It possessed high attack, strong special attack for its time, and impressive bulk. This versatility allowed it to function as either a physical sweeper or mixed attacker in early competitive formats. Even in Generation 2's slower battle environment, Tyranitar carved out a dominant role. The introduction of abilities in Generation 3 elevated Tyranitar even further. It received Sandstream, an ability that automatically summons a sandstorm when it enters battle. This environmental effect damages non-rock, ground, or steel Pokémon each turn and boosts the special defense of rock types. Sandstream did more than add flavor. It turned Tyranitar into a team-building cornerstone. Sandstorm teams became a central strategy in competitive Pokémon for years. Tyranitar's ability to summon sand automatically meant it controlled the battlefield environment without using a turn. That kind of passive influence reshaped competitive metagames across multiple generations. Few Pokémon have ever defined team archetypes as consistently as Tyranitar. From a lore perspective, Pokédex entries describe Tyranitar as so powerful that it can level mountains and alter landscapes during rampages. One entry even claims it is unfazed by any attack and continues moving forward relentlessly. These exaggerated descriptions reinforce its kaiju inspiration. Tyranitar is not merely strong. It is presented as a natural disaster. Its evolutionary line also reflects gradual intensification. Larvitar resembles a small reptilian creature with curious energy. Pupitar becomes encased in a hardened shell, immobile and defensive. Tyranitar then emerges fully armored and aggressive. This transformation mirrors metamorphosis but with a destructive endpoint rather than a delicate one. Developmentally, Tyranitar was likely intended to contrast Dragonite's gentler aesthetic from Generation 1. Dragonite looked approachable despite its strength. Tyranitar looked formidable. This tonal shift aligned with Johto's slightly darker themes, including the introduction of the dark type and more mythological undertones. In the anime, Tyranitar is portrayed as immensely powerful and often difficult to control. Its appearances emphasize its destructive potential and overwhelming presence. Unlike friendly giants, Tyranitar often commands respect through fear. Another hidden detail lies in Tyranitar's sprite proportions. In early games, its back spikes were arranged carefully to maintain readability on small screens. Even in pixel form, it conveyed mass and menace. The name Tyranitar combines tyrant and tar, possibly referencing its rock typing and oppressive strength. The tyrant association aligns with its domineering battlefield presence. Over multiple generations, Tyranitar has remained competitively viable. Even when power creep introduced stronger Pokémon, Tyranitar's Sandstream and versatile move pool ensured relevance. It can learn powerful moves like Crunch, Stone Edge, Earthquake, and Ice Beam, allowing it to threaten a wide range of opponents. Mega Tyranitar, introduced in Generation 6, pushed its power further. Its armor became more angular and pronounced, and its stats increased significantly. Mega Tyranitar excelled as a devastating physical attacker, capable of sweeping teams under sandstorm conditions. Tyranitar also plays an important symbolic role. As Johto's pseudo-legendary, it represents culmination. It is not mythological like Lugia or Ho-Oh, but it carries near-legendary status through sheer power. It bridges the gap between ordinary Pokémon and gods. Culturally, its Godzilla inspiration resonated globally. The kaiju aesthetic gave it cross-cultural appeal beyond Japan. Even players unfamiliar with Japanese beetle traditions could immediately recognize Tyranitar's cinematic presence. Ultimately, Tyranitar symbolizes endurance and dominance. It does not rely on speed or trickery. It relies on overwhelming pressure and environmental control. And towering beneath swirling sandstorms, armored hide unmoved by impact, Tyranitar remains one of Johto's most enduring forces, a Pokémon that turned weather into a weapon and proved that sometimes the strongest presence on the battlefield is the one that reshapes the world around it. Kingdra represents one of Generation 2's most important mechanical and thematic expansions, not because it introduced an entirely new evolutionary line, but because it redefined an existing one. As the evolution of Seadra, Kingdra bridged Kanto and Johto in a way that few Pokémon had before. It demonstrated that older species could gain new relevance through additional stages, new typing combinations, and new methods of evolution. More than that, Kingdra quietly expanded the meaning of the dragon type, which until then had been associated almost exclusively with rare, late-game, pseudo-legendary Pokémon. To understand Kingdra's importance, it is necessary to consider the context of dragon types in Generation 1. The only true dragon-type evolutionary line in Kanto was Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite. Dragons were rare, powerful, and positioned as endgame rewards. When Generation 2 arrived, it did not flood the Pokédex with dragons. Instead, it introduced Kingdra, a dragon-type evolution of a water-type Pokémon, and did so through a new trade-based evolution mechanic. Seadra evolves into Kingdra when traded while holding a dragon scale. This evolution method reinforced two key design philosophies in Johto. First, it emphasized held items as transformative catalysts. Second, it continued to encourage player interaction through trading. Unlike stone evolutions, trade evolutions required cooperation. By tying Kingdra to both a rare item and the act of trading, Game Freak ensured that it felt special and deliberate. Visually, Kingdra maintains the seahorse inspiration of Horsea and Seadra, but transforms it into something more regal and stable. Its body becomes thicker and more balanced. The snout elongates slightly, and its curled tail grows more pronounced. The fin structures around its head expand outward, creating a crown-like silhouette that reinforces its name. Kingdra looks less like a fragile aquatic creature and more like a composed oceanic monarch. The name Kingdra combines king and dragon, signaling both its elevated status and its new typing. This dual identity is central to its design. It is not purely a dragon, nor purely a water type. It represents a hybrid that challenges traditional expectations of both categories. Mechanically, water and dragon typing was extremely powerful in Generation 2. Dragon type weaknesses were limited primarily to ice and other dragon moves, and fairy types did not yet exist. Combined with water's natural defensive strengths, Kingdra had only one significant weakness: dragon. This lack of weaknesses made it uniquely durable for its time. Kingdra's stat distribution supports this defensive versatility. It possesses balanced attack and special attack stats, solid defenses, and decent speed. Unlike more extreme pseudo-legendaries, Kingdra's strength lies in its equilibrium. It can function as either a special or physical attacker, depending on move selection. In competitive play, Kingdra's prominence grew dramatically in later generations. With the introduction of abilities, Swift Swim became one of its defining traits. Swift Swim doubles speed during rain, turning Kingdra into a devastating sweeper under proper conditions. When paired with rain-setting Pokémon, Kingdra could outspeed and overwhelm entire teams. Rain teams became one of the most influential competitive archetypes across multiple generations. Kingdra's typing and move pool made it one of the most consistent beneficiaries of rain support. Water-type moves gained increased power, while Swift Swim ensured offensive pressure. This synergy with rain also reinforces Kingdra's thematic identity. Seahorses in nature are delicate, yet Kingdra's Pokédex entries describe it as capable of generating whirlpools and living in the deepest ocean trenches. It is portrayed as a master of underwater currents. Pokédex entries often describe Kingdra as sleeping in deep-sea caves and creating spiraling currents when threatened. These descriptions give it mythic undertones without elevating it to legendary status. It exists in a liminal space between ordinary Pokémon and mythical sea guardian. From a development perspective, Kingdra also reflects Johto's emphasis on expanding older lines rather than discarding them. By evolving Seadra into Kingdra, the developers validated Kanto's legacy while enriching it. In the anime, Kingdra appears primarily in high-level competitive battles, including appearances tied to gym leader Claire. Claire's Kingdra emphasized its dragon typing, reinforcing its prestige within Johto's dragon culture centered around Blackthorn City. Blackthorn City's focus on dragon types connects Kingdra directly to Johto's lore. While not as imposing as Dragonite, Kingdra represents a different interpretation of dragonhood. It is aquatic, controlled, and balanced. Later generations introduced mega evolutions and stronger dragon types, but Kingdra maintained its niche through typing synergy and strategic versatility. Its presence in rain archetypes ensured longevity. Thematically, Kingdra symbolizes composure within power. Unlike Tyranitar's destructive dominance, Kingdra embodies controlled depth. Ultimately, Kingdra stands as one of Johto's quiet revolutions. It proved that dragon typing could extend beyond pseudo-legendaries, that trade evolution could feel meaningful, and that balance could rival brute force. And deep beneath shifting currents, where sunlight fades into blue silence, Kingdra waits with calm authority, a dragon not of flame or fury, but of pressure, precision, and the steady rhythm of the sea.